Hello, ladies and gentlemen. MarauderEX here with a rant, because this has been brought up several times, and I felt I needed to talk about it, because, oh my god, really? Oh my god. Alright, so, I'm going to do a little bit of history lesson. First off, Retro VGS, the Indiegogo project last year that was trying to make a cartridge-based, no updates, perfect game all around, collector's-based console. I've got a cat that is just all over me right now. It was this huge scope of a console. It wanted to have, modern style indie graphics, like things like Shovel Knight and things like that, that were completely flawless on a cartridge, much like the old days of gaming, like the Genesis, the SNES, that sort of thing, where you had the games on a cartridge that, this is actually a memory card for Saturn, not even a game cartridge, but you had that, and you didn't have to worry about updates or being online or any of that. And the theory was very, very flimsy at best, because the crux of the argument was you've got to make a perfect game the first time because you can't update it. And what are you going to do? Charge people to buy like revision A or revision B again, or do a cart exchange for like if there's a huge game-breaking bug because they just didn't have enough time to beta test that much? Because that's the thing. The indie style games don't have the force behind them to do as much beta testing as larger companies, and even larger companies still have issues based off of how they decided to code the game. So it was not a feasible concept to start with. It really wasn't. And it failed. It failed miserably because there was a lot of back and forth. I'm pretty sure there's an Encyclopedia Dramatica entry on it because it was just so out there. Well, it came back this year. Rebranded. The Coleco Chameleon, I believe is the name of it. Coleco, as in the company like ColecoVision, does not exist anymore. It's just a name. Like, literally, a holdings company owns the rights to the name. They do nothing with gaming. They own the rights. It's like if Sega stopped making games and I owned the rights to Sega Genesis. And that's specifically it. Like, nothing to do with the company at all. Just the company that happens to own the current paperwork licensed out the name Coleco for this so that they could try to get past it. Well, Coleco Chameleon, basically the same thing. They're like, okay, we're going to scale it down where the Retro VGS had like 8 different controller ports, so you could use like NES, SNES, Genesis, USB, this, that, the other, just so much crap. It had like HDMI out, S-video out, composite out, component out, smoke signal out, all sorts of. And they're like, okay, we'll slim it down. It'll only have HDMI out, only have USB inputs for controllers. We'll slim it down. They didn't. The original thing they had, like I mentioned, they had on Indiegogo because they didn't have a working prototype. A working prototype is kind of something that you need to have for Kickstarter, which is why it was on Indiegogo. They were told they had special permission that they could do it on Kickstarter if they wanted to, but they didn't want to deal with the fans complaining about people getting preferential treatment. A lot of not quite right stuff going on there. But anyway, so they have a working prototype, and this working prototype was shown off at Toy Fair, and that's what people are talking about, because this working prototype doesn't sound like it's a working prototype. It sounds like they had an FPGA board that was going to emulate, or it was the core of the SNES, and they were just going to show off SNES games. Well, at Toy Fair, they had the prototype console in a box, 2 wires coming out for controllers using what looked like SNES controllers, but not the controller that's supposed to come packaged with the console. And then pictures taken from the back of it show a not HDMI out, which is very confusing. It's like, if you're going to have HDMI out, why do you have it? Because it was being played on a CRT TV, so it was Definitely not HDMI out. It was an analog signal. So why do you have an analog out when you're going to be doing digital out? That's a lot of very confusing. A lot of people have started looking into the fact that it looks like they took an NES Mini, removed the main board from it, gutted. I mean, they have the tooling, the original like case design for the Atari Jaguar. That was their biggest selling point of the Retro VGS, and it's supposed to be the biggest selling point for Coleco Chameleon. But they have the Jaguar case because that was such a well-designed looking console. Anyway, so they put an NES Mini in, or an SNES Mini rather, I think. SNES Mini inside, and there was apparently lots of pictures involving lots of electrical tape and a lot of things that people have speculated what exactly was in that. And the fact that there was no power switch, like you had to unplug the power cord and replug it back in to power it back on. Very weird for a prototype. Like that's just bad. I'll get to that in a second. One of the other things, the analog signal out looks like it was the cord connector, the AV out for the SNES, GameCube. Like Nintendo used basically the same AV out cord from the console itself. So the same connector worked on pretty much any of their consoles for a really long time. So that's a lot of what? So a lot of people speculated that's SNES Mini board in their Jaguar case. Now, if that is their working prototype, that is a painful excuse for a prototype. And the fact that it was only playing SNES stuff, like there's a lot of stuff, but it just kind of raises the question: if this is a prototype, why does it not have a power button? Why does it not have a reset button? I mean, those should be pretty standard for a prototype. The fact that they're not using the same AV out signal that they're going to be using, the fact that they're not using the controllers that are supposed to be bundled in with the console, also kind of... There's a lot of things not adding up. So it's just come back to this is someone who had a dream and not really willing to accept that their dream went down like the Hindenburg. The Retro VGS was just a flawed concept. I get the idea behind it. I want to go back to the good old days of gaming with the rose-colored glasses and everything, but we're not in that age anymore. Having a cartridge-based, non-online system, that's an incredibly niche market. You're not going to appeal to a broad swath of people. Like, I love cartridge games. But I know no developer is going to have a completely flawless game right off the bat, and if there's no way to do a patch for it, then that could sink a developer. Because if you have a broken game, you're either going to have to issue refunds, the stores are going to have to issue refunds depending on where the game is sold. Either way, a refund is going to either have to happen, or you're going to have a no refund policy, which is going to make people very hesitant to buy in the first place. Or there's no way for a developer to actually win in that scenario, because most small developers, they don't have the ability, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the time or resources or money to do as much beta testing as the consumers do. I mean, you could have 1,000 people, and there's this thing about 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters will eventually write Shakespeare. You could have 1,000 beta testers on 1,000 consoles playing for 1,000 hours, and still not find as much as a public retail release, because you're going to have those 1,000 people and 1,000 hours pop up like that. Look at stats for how many hours of gameplay are played for even some of the smallest games, and then yeah, that's it. It's like my watch time hours. Like, I'm not a huge channel, but my watch time hours would very quickly dwarf the 1,000 people for 1,000 hours. Like, that's just how it is. So, like, I've got 2,000 people. I forget how many. I haven't checked what my current watch time is for it, but I guarantee you I'd probably be beating out those numbers on my channel, let alone, you know, an indie team that maybe this is their first or second game. So there's a lot of, it was an interesting idea. I won't even say it's a good idea. It's an interesting idea, but didn't take off the first time, and now they're trying to relaunch it and rebrand it, but this time they're just bold-faced lying to people. And I understand you don't want to see your dream go up in smoke. Like, I've got, you know, aspirations of things that, you know, things I would like to design, I would like to do, but I'm not going to just lie to what would be my consumer base about it. There's so many videos I've watched the last couple of days, like Pat the NES Punk, the podcast there, talking about it. Like, you can go look at some of the stuff and just some of the research done by these guys, like people at the Atari Age forums and things like that, just kind of showing off, you should walk into this skeptical at best and outright disillusioned as pretty much the standard barometer. It's like, it's almost, it is insulting. It is to the gaming community to think you can do this and not get called out on it. I don't understand. I mean, I've been championing the concept of a cartridge system for a while. Like, when the rumors of the Nintendo's new console, the NX, having a cartridge based design, I'm like, okay, that's neat, that's great. Cartridges, you know, fairly stable medium. It's, if they have the portable and home station interlock, whatever they're planning on doing with it, a cartridge is a much better portable format than a disc. Even like UMDs were iffy at best, so cartridge is a much more stable. I was like, yeah, that's great, and cartridge technology has improved exponentially over the last couple of years. It's still dirt cheap to do discs, but, you know, and even Blu-rays are actually fairly scratch resistant, but then you gotta license the Blu-ray technology. So, like, if you've already got a cartridge that if you can do it cheap, it's not a bad thing, but it's very rare that a company's going to be able to do a cartridge as cheap as a disc. Actually, it's impossible for a company to do a cartridge as cheap as a disc for the storage size and space, as well as, like, the read-write speeds. But you can do one that's relatively inexpensive that you can still make a profit off of. That's not outside of the realm of possibility, but you make more profit with a disc. So that's anyway. But I like that concept. I like cartridges as a concept. But I don't think it's feasible in any way to say, oh, it'll be a perfect game. It has to be. You won't get any non-perfect games on this. It's like, no, there were a ton of non-perfect games on the 8 and 16-bit eras. We just look at them a little differently because we grew up with them. I guarantee you give some of the more broken games to kids these days, you get things like the speedrunning community that just burn through a game in like 5 minutes because they like looking at being able to write specific RAM data to Super Mario World on the SNES so you can get to the credits like that. Anyway, that's what it is. If you're curious about the whole thing, go check out the history of the Retro VGS. Go look at the stuff for the Coleco Chameleon and the Toy Fair launch. Go look at some of these other people's analysis of these, because it's insulting. It really is. That you're just going to go this route. Like, if you didn't have a working prototype, just come out and say it. Or if you're like, oh, this is a working prototype based off of technology where like, there are so many ways that you could have, you know, spun this without just putting another console in another console with electrical tape. Like, I go back and check one of my old videos where I did the Saturn emulator PC. I put, a micro PC inside of a Sega Saturn case. And, it wasn't perfect because I couldn't find specific parts. So, like, I've got the USB ports sticking out of where the controllers were. I didn't get to use the CD-ROM drive or anything like that. So, I mean, there are, some very large, aesthetic issues with it. But I didn't pretend that it was a Sega Saturn that I somehow turned into a computer. And no, I did not. That's like saying if I did the same thing. That's if I were to do the same thing they did with my Saturn PC. It's like, oh yes, no, I made a Sega Saturn that can play arcade games and MAME games and Super Nintendo games. And, I totally didn't change anything inside it. No, totally. Why are there USB ports sticking out of the controls? No, don't worry about that. Shh. No. That's what this level is, and it's terrible that this is part of the gaming community right now. That this is something that someone thinks they can get away with because reasons. It looks bad for them, and it looks bad for us because there are people out there supporting it. I mean, you can support the idea, but this execution is terrible. This is just a slap in the face. So, anyway, go check out the stuff, go look at it, leave me your thoughts and opinions in the comments, because I cannot see a positive to this at all. Like, as a gaming collector, as a fan of 16-bit era games, I cannot see a positive. I cannot see a market where this is going to make sense. This is just like an even more specific Ouya to me. And that's the sad part, because the Ouya was a great idea and concept, and it flopped. And this is an even more specific concept, and it flopped already. And now it's like Wile E. Coyote showing back up, dressed up in like the sheep outfit, trying to get past the sheepdog. It's like, no, we know what this is. And it's going to end the same way for them as it does for Wile E. Coyote. The sheepdog's going to punch him in the face. So, but if you have a viewpoint on this that I have not seen, point it out, but I truly cannot see a positive to this at all. Go check out the other stuff. Do as much research on this topic as you can to see, what everyone else has already seen. And if there is still a positive to be said for it there, please point it out. I would love to see it. I would love to give a change in the direction of the gaming industry a chance. But I don't think this is it. So, like I said, let me know your thoughts. And I'm going to go, and I will see you guys for the Let's Plays and the live streams and whatnot, and for other Rant videos whenever they happen to pop up. So till then, later everyone.